Fantasy Football Today from CBS Sports.
Here we go!
Email us at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com.
Here we go!
If you still draft quarterbacks in round one, we're here to help.
Let's go!
Now, here's Adam, Dave, and Jamie.
Reviewing a 10-team PPR mock draft from yesterday, bringing in our Dolphins beat reporter, Dave Richard. Welcome back, Dave.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah.
I got some sun.
Oh, you did?
Not really. I did sweat, though.
Yeah, well, I don't doubt that. It's hot out there, Dave.
Yeah, and I'm chubby.
And Jamie's here, too. Hey, Jamie.
Hi, buddy.
And I'm Adam Azer. This is Fantasy Football Today. Today is Team Name Tuesday. We've got some good team names for you. Reviewing that mock draft and finding out about Dolphins running backs, Adrian Peterson, Rob Gronkowski, injury to a Arizona receiver. You know it's not Michael Floyd or I'd already be freaking out. I also want to talk about an amazing quarterback stat that's kind of blowing my mind right now. Jamie was texting me last night about fantasy baseball. The conversation transitioned to fantasy football. And I told you the 5-year trends with quarterbacks. Were you as blown away as I am?
No. And I sarcastically said to you, you mean it's becoming more and more of a passing league?
Yeah, and I will sarcastically say to you, oh, what, it just became a passing league over the last 5 years? It's been a passing league for over a decade.
Yeah, but more
Sure.
and more.
Well, I said more and more, not became.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You said becoming, I think. Calling you out.
Well,
All right, here's the stat. Here's the stat.
Quarterbacks throw a lot. Welcome to the NFL.
And then we have our bet that we can tell everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, a bet.
Yeah.
You're not going to like what I propose as my side of the victory, though.
Oh, crap.
Really? He's going to be on my side?
No, I said you're
How
not.
about I
You're
decide
not
what
going
side
to.
I'm on?
I said you're not going to like what I decide as my side of the victory, like what
Okay.
I get you to do.
Oh, I thought you were talking to Dave. Here's the thing. I don't know who you're
That's-
meaning.
yeah,
when
you were
say-
looking at me when you said
Dave
it.
is going to be torn by this bet.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for him. All right,
Yes.
bet in a second. Over the last 5 years, I'm going to tell you the amount of fantasy points the number 12 quarterback has scored in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Now,
So not number 1, number 12.
number 12.
The
Now-
12th best quarterback.
Yes, I think
This is how Adam spends his nights, by the way.
I
People.
think this is pretty clear what I'm saying. Number 12, 6-point per passing touchdown league. If you're in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, the trends are still the same. Don't worry about the specifics. The point is this. Here are the fantasy points last 5 years, beginning in 2011. 254 fantasy points. 291 fantasy points. 291 again. 312 fantasy points in 2014. 342 fantasy points in 2015. It has gone up from 254 to 342 in 5 years. To put this in perspective, Phillip Rivers scored 341 points in 2013, and he was the number 3 quarterback in fantasy. He scored the same amount of fantasy points last year, and he was the number 12 quarterback in fantasy. I find this to be amazing, and it is not really coinciding with more fantasy points at the top necessarily, and I just wonder if it's an even bigger case to wait. And I don't mean wait till round 4. I mean wait until round 12 to draft a quarterback.
Adam,
Yes.
do you have the top 5 finishes for number 1 fantasy quarterbacks?
Yes.
Or over the last 5 years,
Yes.
the number 1 finish.
Yes.
And what were those numbers, and what were the difference between 1 and 12?
Well, that's going to take some math, but here we go. Fine. Number
We'll
one.
fudge it. Go ahead.
Number 1 in 2011, Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees both scored about the same, 471, 470 points for
Okay,
Rodgers
so
and Brees.
Okay, so then,
It's almost 200 points.
right.
It's
No,
over
it's like
200.
150.
No, it's over 200 because that was a 200 because Vic scored 254 that year.
Okay, and it was 470, so it was 220.
Okay.
Somebody write this down.
2012. 422 points for Drew Brees.
All right, so
290.
that's a lot less.
Let me say it. 291 points for Andy Dalton. 2013. See, this is an outlier. 514 points for Peyton Manning. 291 points for Tom Brady.
Do you see who finished number 2 that year?
Drew Brees,
Yes.
423 points.
All right, let's go off that one then.
Yeah. 2014, Andrew Luck, 415 points. Phillip Rivers, 312 points.
100 points difference. Go ahead.
And Cam Newton, 458 last year, second best year in the last 5 for a quarterback. And Phillip Rivers, 341 points.
So at worst, there was a 100-point gap between QB1 and QB12.
That's pretty big still.
I agree. That's why it's not always. Listen, you can take a quarterback as late as you want. You know you're going to get somebody who you feel good starting. But if you divide 100 by 16, 6.25 fantasy points per game, that's the difference between QB1 and QB12 when it's just 100 points difference. When you start talking about 130, 150, or in the case of Peyton and his big year, it was basically double that. Then you're talking about a lot of points. I still think the goal is the same. Get a quarterback that you're comfortable starting,
or two,
with one or both of them in your mind having a chance to finish close to number one. Like with Aaron Rodgers, you're drafting him, he better finish top 3.
Or Cam.
And if same thing with Cam. And if it's number one, then that's great. No one's going to shy away from having QB1 at the end of the year. That's a lot of points for your fantasy.
Yeah, actually, to kind of put it the way I was saying was that I don't really have a problem with what I've been doing a lot, which is taking like Andrew Luck in the 4th round or something like, somebody that I think can be the number 1 quarterback. I'm now wondering, is it worth it to take Roethlisberger? Is it worth it to take Carson Palmer? Is it worth it to take, I don't know who's going to be 8th off the board. Maybe it's Tony Romo or Eli Manning or Brady's kind of a different case because he does have QB1 potential for the 12 games he plays. Or, the guys who are going to finish 7 to 10, they probably shouldn't go 4 or 5 rounds earlier than the guy who's going to finish 12 to 14.
Well, I mean, the question would become are you banking on Cam and Aaron Rodgers finishing 1-2 again? Or I'm sorry, not 1-2 again, but finishing as 1 or 2 where you're drafting them? Or are you counting on where Cam came from last year and where Bortles came from last year and those guys that tend to outperform or in some cases well outperform their draft stock?
Yeah.
So if you're counting, like Roethlisberger, if he played 16 games last year, would have been in the top 3, based on his stats. And Palmer was a top 5 guy. And we all know where Palmer was drafted. He was relatively late by comparison to where he finished.
Oh, right.
So are you hoping for, and in this case, I think you got to get past the guys that you named of Roethlisberger, Palmer, and Brady and look at the guys that are after that. And it's a mixed bag, and that's where, we can bring up our bet. But it's, guys like Eli Manning and Blake Bortles and Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston and Phillip Rivers and Stafford and all those guys. And even take it a step further, maybe Tannehill, maybe Cousins, maybe Tyrod Taylor. All these guys showed flashes last year. Derek Carr. There's a lot of great quarterbacks. And it's why we, have been telling you for years to wait. And it's why we'll continue to tell you to wait if you don't feel comfortable taking a quarterback early. And the thing about it is to offset those 100 points, you have to make sure the guys that you're taking early, instead of taking those quarterbacks, play to the level of what they're capable of doing.
Right. You can still win a league without having the number 1 quarterback in fantasy.
Of course,
or even the number 5 quarterback. I mean,
you could have had Phillip Rivers last year and still won your league because you theoretically would have drafted well at the other spots or played the waiver wire well. It's not bulletproof, but ideally, number 1, quarterback that you're comfortable starting because you're expecting 20 to 22 fantasy points per game. That's the mark. If they get you more than 22, that's great. But I think in the case of Cam and Aaron Rodgers, you've got to expect a little bit more than that. And certainly you want somebody who you believe can finish top 5, if not top 3, if not QB1.
And look, the nice thing about it is because it's so deep, you can still win your league when Aaron Rodgers has a down year because his number 1 receiver is not there, or Andrew Luck gets hurt and you don't have him, or even Tony Romo gets hurt. These are replaceable guys, not to the level of what they're capable of doing when they're on the field, but it is a position that you can get by. I mean, we've been talking about it all offseason, that you could have played the season in thirds of Rivers in the beginning when Keenan Allen was healthy, and then moved on to Fitzpatrick or Bortles in the middle of the year, and then closed the season with Kirk Cousins. And a lot of people had some combination of 2 or 3 quarterbacks to manage through the playoffs or even win.
Couple things. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger would have been top 3 last year.
Well, he would have been around there. I mean,
he averaged 22 fantasy points per game on the nose. So 22 times 16. That's like 7,000, right?
Yeah. Well, but he scored 5 points against the Rams. I kind of get rid of that game because he got hurt in that game. So, I'd say
But he played most of the game.
352 would have put him at 7th overall.
Now, in addition, let's talk about our bet. I like Blake Bortles this year more than Phillip Rivers. Jamie certainly does not. That's the bet.
Okay. See, usually when there's a bet involved,
I don't know what the
there's
terms
something
are.
on the line. There's terms.
Well, I don't have any terms, but
All right,
I like
so
and you're
Bortles
right.
more than
And
Rivers.
Jamie's exactly right. I am torn by the bet.
That's right, because you like Bortles
I
better
do,
than Rivers,
yeah.
but Rivers is your guy. So here's what I propose to you, and I know you're not going to like it, and you're going to say no. But if I win, we'll know by the end of the season who is better.
Mhm.
I get a toast at your rehearsal dinner.
Ooh.
I honestly,
And I promise to be respectful and not say anything inappropriate, but I get to say something about you nicely at your rehearsal.
I don't really have a problem with that because I trust you to say something nice, but I don't really think I was planning on inviting you to the rehearsal dinner.
Well, now you have
Wait
to.
a minute. Don't you invite out-of-town guests to the rehearsal?
I think that's a little outdated. I think you can certainly be an out-of-town guest and not be important enough to be at the rehearsal dinner. It's kind of like a close friends and family thing. I don't think we're there. I'm sorry to say it.
Okay, well, now you have to invite me.
But what about Dave?
You
Now you have to invite Dave, too.
I'm Jamie's
All right,
plus
so
one.
Here's what it'll be. You don't have to invite our wives. You just have to invite the two of us to come if I'm giving the toast. If I'm not giving the toast, look, you'll know by the time you're sending out your invitations.
Yeah.
Now, what are you going to give Adam if he wins?
So that's it for him to decide.
All right, fine. I'll think about it. So
Wow, that was a really smart. Can we record it and put it on the podcast?
Oh, sure. Well, we're podcasting at his wedding.
I know, but I'm
Nando's
rehearsal dinner.
Nando has already said he's bringing equipment.
All right, this is great.
yeah, now Nando's not
Yeah,
invited.
so Dave will be Skyped in. I'll be there live.
We're going to have a fun wedding. It's going to be great. Now, today is Team Name Tuesday. We'll read some names on the air. We're also giving you – this is cool, guys. We're giving people a chance to win a sweet prize if you have a great team name. Here's what you do for the entire month of August. Go to cbssports.com/Stoli, S-T-O-L-I, Stoli, cbssports.com/Stoli. Stoli is sponsoring a best fantasy football team name contest. So our Fantasy Football Today listeners should go to that URL, cbssports.com/Stoli, enter your best fantasy football team name, and here's what you can win. A 3-day, 2-night trip for you and a guest to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You get to come to the CBS Interactive office in Fort Lauderdale where Dave and Jamie are, and two of you will receive a behind-the-scenes tour of our Fantasy Football Today studio along with sitting in during a live shoot of Fantasy Football Today, the video show. So that's really cool. You get to be on the show. I didn't even get to be on the show anymore. You get to go to Fort Lauderdale, come see the studio, hang out with Dave and Jamie, get on the show. Just enter your best fantasy football team name at cbssports.com/Stoli, S-T-O-L-I. That's pretty fun, huh?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, man. That's a great contest. Take advantage of it. All right, some news for you. Adrian
And when
Peterson.
you come, bring me snacks,
Yeah, bring him snacks.
please.
What would you like?
5 pizzas.
What week is it?
I'm not sure.
Okay, because it's probably middle of fat ball season, so I'll probably want to lose some weight at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Salad. You
So-
want them to bring salad. Veggie tray.
rice cakes.
Rice cakes.
Rice
Good to
cakes.
know. All right. At the end of the show yesterday, we talked about Adrian Peterson having a slight hamstring injury. I waited way too long to bring it up, so if you missed it, I just want to know real quick, are you guys at all concerned about Adrian Peterson and his slight hamstring injury?
I don't think you should be, but it's a sign of a guy at his age who is coming off another year of leading the NFL in carries. It's just something to put in the back of your mind.
Okay. Now,
Jerick McKinnon.
ESPN's Diana Marie Rossini reports that Rob Gronkowski dealt with a pectoral injury this offseason.
But he's fine now. He's been practicing. It seems to be something in the rear view mirror. But perhaps that was one of the reasons why they went and got Martellus Bennett.
I think it was after Bennett.
What do you mean? He got the injury after Bennett?
Well, he was missing in OTAs, so I don't.
We
think-
don't know when the injury happened. It could have happened at the end of the year or something.
Well, I
like
mean,
that.
when you take a shot and you slam your glass down on the table, sometimes it could.
It's
hurt
never
yourself.
happened to me.
No, it's never happened to Adam. You know that.
Yeah, definitely not me. On Sirius XM, we had New Jersey Advanced Media's Daryl Slater on, and he said, like we had him, like I'm on Sirius XM.
Yeah, all of a sudden we own Sirius.
Yeah. We had our show on Sirius. We had Matt Forte, Bilal Powell report, and Daryl Slater said that the two of them have a nearly even carry split I am hoping in my slow draft that's going on right now, my Dynasty League that has basically nobody good available, that I can get Bilal Powell. You guys think he will have better value on draft day than Matt Forte?
Yes. I mean, you're getting him, I think his average draft position is like the 11th round.
Yeah.
So 4th or 5th round for Forte versus 11th round for Powell. I mean, there's probably there's reason to believe that the production could be somewhat similar.
I think it'll take an injury to Forte for it to be similar.
For it to be similar?
Yeah. I think at
If
the
Forte
end of the
gets
year,
hurt, Powell's going to be a superstar.
well, it depends on what part of the year Forte gets hurt and how quickly he recovers. Forte played 13 games last year, and I certainly don't want to take up for Matt Forte. I've got him at the very end of my top 50 in non-PPR, and I don't like it. I really don't feel like he's going to have a big year. Everything's pointing to over the hill, just got paid, kind of a, farewell tour type deal with the Jets. Bilal Powell is definitely somebody who is interesting in PPR leagues late.
Oh, yeah. I'm even interested in him.
What round are you in your draft, Adam? Where you're praying for him?
It's a dynasty league. We keep most of the roster. This is probably like the 25th guy on my roster, and this is the 6th round of the free agent draft.
Got it. Okay.
But that's
I hope he
perfect.
makes it to you.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, for example, I just took Tim Hightower because I have Mark Ingram. So
Smart.
Now I'm hoping for Powell. We've also got John Brown in the concussion protocol. I don't know. I keep saying we, like I'm on the team. John Brown's in the concussion
We
protocol.
own Sirius and the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, big day for us.
Yeah.
He hit his head on the turf on Sunday, and we'll keep an eye on it. Dave, welcome back from Dolphins camp. Tell us about the running backs.
How much time you got? I can give you the short version first.
We got a draft to review, so I think that would help. Short version.
How's that? Let me tell you the good things about the Dolphins. Their receivers are sneaky great. Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry, they look outstanding. I think that if you just look just at them and compared it with the rest of the league, I don't know where they'd rank, but it would be fairly high. They've got a nice duo there. Kenny Stills looked okay in practice. Leonte Carew stood out to me. Very, very quick feet, very big upper body. I don't know how much of an opportunity he'll get. Here's how this is going to work. The Dolphins' offensive line has good depth. Theoretically, it should be good. Historically, it's not. If they can keep it together, Tannehill will have a little extra time to throw. It'll be good for his receivers. From what I can tell, the Dolphins are very nervous about giving Arian Foster a lot of work. They had plenty of opportunities in practice yesterday to do it. Jay Ajayi came up with a bone bruise in practice on Sunday, didn't practice on Monday. Did they put Arian Foster in with the starters for the beginning of team drills where they play 11 on 11? Nope, it was Isaiah Peed. And Isaiah Peed looked okay, believe it or not. Foster got in there, eventually played 2 snaps. I think he had 2 carries. They were inside zone runs, and he was out of there. He didn't touch the ball enough to look good or bad. He just looked like he could play, and I guess that's good for him at this stage in the game. Later in practice, Isaiah Peed cramps up, leaves practice. Okay, so now this would be the best time to let Arian Foster rip a little bit. Nope. Kenyon Drake got in there.
Why would they, though?
Well, but that's the thing. Why would they? Clearly, they have designs on either saving him for the season or limiting him because they know what his track record is with injuries.
But wouldn't you?
And I'm going to say it's the latter.
Wouldn't you?
If it's a training camp practice, I'd give him more than 2 snaps at a time.
If they feel comfortable in the running back room, that he's picking things up mentally and physically, he's clearly still coming along. I mean, there was the report that he crushed his conditioning drill,
right?
Which is fine. They know he knows how to read an offense. They know he knows how to read a defense.
I would have given him a little more work. In a practice, it's not a scrimmage. It's not a preseason game.
But again, I understand what your thought is, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm them, I'm like, why would I need to?
Then why would you even suit him up?
Because you have still a month before games count. And so if he's another month of practice, another month of knowing what to do, another month of that Achilles being close to 100%. Look, I think Arian Foster is going to be very similar to D'Angelo Williams, very similar to Rashad Jennings, very similar to Justin Forsett from a fantasy perspective. You're going to get a stretch of games where he's going to help you in some way, shape, or form. And You just have to manage that. And I think the Dolphins are going to manage him by not making, what I don't understand what the problem is with resting him the first day. I mean, this happens with every player that's dealing with something or coming off of something is not out there doing their full workload. So I don't think
I don't understand why they would even put him in the team drills then. He did all the individual drills and he looked fine.
Well, he has to know what he's doing.
He touched the ball 5-6 times.
Let me move it along. Just give me your major takeaways.
I don't want anything to do with the Dolphins running backs. I think it's going to be a split situation no matter what. I think Adam Gase really likes Arian Foster, but that's on paper. And everybody knows that Arian Foster is a big-time injury risk. Yeah. I cannot touch him with a top 80 pick. Cannot.
But you don't have to.
No, there were people in my Twitter timeline yesterday that were ready to take him in round 5.
Oh, no, believe me, I know.
I can't do it. I can't do it in round 7.
You let other people do that. That's fine. But the later he falls, the better off he's going to be.
Sure, if it's round 10, I'll take him.
Yeah,
probably round 9, maybe even round 8.
I'm hoping that Ajayi keeps falling. So I don't buy it. I don't buy that Foster's staying healthy. I don't buy that he's going to be that good anymore. Maybe as a pass catcher, not as a rusher. It's all peaches and cream right now for Foster. But the best thing that could happen, I think, was that people just downgrade Ajayi so much that you draft him, I don't know, 7th round or something like that, and you wait a little bit. Eventually, it's clear he's the better running back, and you go nuts and you have a starter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that either. And for the record, the bone bruises on his left knee, all the issues with his knee in college was on the right knee. And he also did his fair share of pass catching in college.
He caught 50 passes at Year Boise State.
Yeah, and 7. He barely played it last year for the Dolphins, but he still had 7 catches. He can do that. And he's a pretty big dude. Both he and Foster are big dudes. So I can see where Adam Gase looks at them and potentially could use them interchangeably, which will also drive
they won't use
fantasy
Ajayi on passing downs.
I think it could be a deal eventually where it's Ajayi for a series, Foster for a series.
I think as long as Foster's healthy, he's playing on passing downs. And then if he's not, then we'll either use Williams or Drake.
Well, guys, I was pretty determined yesterday when we did our PPR mock draft, 10-team PPR mock draft, to go 3 receivers with my first 3 picks. This was not a 3-receiver league, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, tight end, flex, kicker, defense, 1 quarterback. But 10-team PPR is exactly when you devalue running backs. It's the easiest way to go, whether it's truly 0 RB or just waiting until like the 4th round for your first running back, whatever. I was determined. And I had the 4th pick, and I took DeAndre Hopkins because it was Brown, Beckham, Jones with the first 3 picks, pretty predictable in some order. I took Hopkins 4th, and I took Alshon Jeffrey with the 7th pick of round 2 after Allen Robinson came off the board. Jordy Nelson was off the board. Also, Lamar Miller and Le'Veon Bell went off the board. So I had my first 2. I get to round 3, and I've got Brandon Cooks and Eddie Lacy in my queue. I didn't really expect Lacy to be there with the 24th overall pick, even in PPR. And I was like, am I going to deviate from my plan? Am I going to go with this running back that I think has top 5 potential? No, I went with Brandon Cooks. What would you guys have done there?
Cooks.
Oh, good. I feel good about it then. Jamie took Eddie Lacy 4 picks later. So have you guys had a chance to review this draft? I guess it would probably be Jamie since Dave was out of the office a little bit yesterday at Dolphins camp. Any major takeaways here?
From the draft or that point?
From the draft, and we can come back to our strategies. But
there was an owner, Peter Madden's team, who picked 11th, and
9th.
He picked 9th. I'm sorry,
it's a 10-team league.
Excuse me, 9th.
If you're picking 11th, you're not actually in the league.
He did horribly.
Or you're picking in round 2.
He picked 9th. Sorry. And he took 3 running backs with his first 4 picks. So he went the opposite route of you. And I mean, look, I don't love the receivers that he got, but you can make a strong case for them as good enough in this format. With his 3 running backs, I believe, are Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles, and LaShawn McCoy. So that's his 2 running backs in his flex. And his starting receivers are Julian Edelman and Doug Baldwin.
Yeah.
With Kevin White as his
You're
third.
right, Kevin White is his third.
So you have an opportunity there to clearly start 3 stud running backs. Those are guys that are top 12 potential. And the one thing you'll see the full results of the draft on our site. that he had a chance to, I forget the running back that he took, but he had a chance to take Emmanuel Sanders, who fell and is continuing to fall.
Yeah.
So if he would have gone with Edelman, Baldwin, White, and Sanders instead of a fourth or fifth running back, depending on how his team.
He took T.J. Yeldon over Emmanuel.
Right,
Sanders.
that's the pick. That to me doesn't make sense. So if he has Sanders, and now he's got those four receivers to pull from for 2 or 3 spots.
Which four?
Then that makes that team a lot better.
Edelman, Baldwin, who? Sanders,
Kevin White and Emmanuel Sanders.
Kevin White. Okay. Now let's compare then the first 5 picks for me and for Peter, and you guys tell me which strategy you think worked better here. Because I went 3 receivers and he went 3 running backs with 3 of his first 4 picks. But I went Hopkins, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Cooks. Oh, who did I take in round 4, guys? C.J. Anderson,
Mr. Predictable.
my first running back. And then I took Danny Woodhead as my number 2 running back. So I have Anderson, Woodhead, and those 3 receivers, Hopkins, Cooks, and Jeffrey. He had Peterson, Jamal Charles, and LaShawn McCoy as his flex, with Julian Edelman and Doug Baldwin as his 2 receivers in a PPR league. Which do you prefer?
Your team.
Yes, your team. But
Your team, because your first 5 will catch more passes than his first 5. And I think the amount of yardage between your first 5 and his first 5 is going to be close. And I think touchdowns might actually end up favoring him, but I don't like his receiver choices. He took Edelman when he could have had Kelvin Benjamin. He took Doug Baldwin when he could have had a lot of other people.
Oh, well, he could have had Kelvin Benjamin. That actually changes things a lot. In my opinion. I'm assuming yours.
Well, I mean, look, he's counting on Edelman being 100 catches. Again, that's it's risky to consider that, but if that happens, then he's back to being a top 15 PPR receiver, which would make him better than Kelvin Benjamin.
He could have had John Brown or Jeremy Maclin or Dante Moncrief ahead of Doug Baldwin.
Right, but people that like Doug Baldwin will argue that he's in that category already.
Yeah, it's
better.
close. That's fine.
All right, so look, I basically would love to do a 10-team PPR draft because I think I feel really good about my strategy. I will let you guys talk about your strategies and your takeaways. I went basically best player available. I knew I wanted to get 3 wide receivers early, and I knew I wanted to basically take a best player available approach at whenever I could. So I took Andrew Luck in the 6th round. My team is Luck. My starters, anyway, are Luck.
Well, wait, back up for 1 second because I just have one question. Who were the receivers available to you? Who were the receivers available to you when you took C.J. Anderson?
The next
he
2
could
picks,
have had Jarvis Landry, Floyd, Baldwin, Devontae Parker, Kevin White, Moncrief, John Brown, Jeremy Maclin, Tyler Lockett.
I think the question will become for you is if C.J. Anderson is not as good as Eddie Lacy and Brandon Cooks is maybe not, or is any of those receivers are as good as
Michael
what
Floyd.
Cooks gives you.
Yeah, huh? I know. Nothing's perfect, but I like my team, right? So Luck.
No, I do too. I'm just saying that's like your first 2 picks. You can't argue with that. It's passing on, the potential of what Lacy could be for Anderson, which I don't think there's much difference, to be honest with you. And seeing how that kind of plays itself out.
Yeah, and I just think this is what I'm going to do this year. If I have them sitting there, I'm looking at a wide receiver and I'm looking at a running back, and I feel like they're fairly equal. And I think in this format, Lacy and Cooks are fairly equal. I think I'm just going to tend to lean toward the wide receiver this year. Well,
you should.
That's what a lot of people
Right.
are going to do because it's safer. It goes back to what you do at the beginning of a draft if you have the number 1 overall pick.
Yep.
In a PPR league, I'm not going to fight you on taking a receiver because
Right.
those extra 100 points, I mean, it won't be 100 because the receiver isn't going to catch 100 more receptions than Gurley.
Well, Brown.
With what 130, 140? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But those points really add up. And that's why receivers are just so much more valuable in PPR. Standard league, I think it's a different conversation.
This is what I would recommend if you wait on running back. Andrew Luck, for me, was my 6th round pick. C.J. Anderson, Danny Woodhead are my starting running backs. Hopkins, Jeffrey, and Cooks are my 3 receivers, one of them being a flex. Kobe Fleener is my tight end. So I really love my starting lineup, and then I took...
I like what our conversation was in the middle of the draft when I said I really love your team. I said it's all Azer team.
Yeah, it was the all Azer / all Eisenberg team.
Right.
Theo Riddick on my bench, catches passes. Devontae Booker on my bench because I have to learn how to spell his first name, and he's C.J. Anderson's handcuff and a little bit of insurance there. And I have Melvin Gordon, who is kind of connected to Danny Woodhead. You know, I could see both of them being worth starting in a PPR league.
He had 33 catches last year.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, that's not anything to turn your head at when you're talking about a guy who was completely terrible.
Yep.
If he's 33 catches again and improves as a rusher, he's going to be a superstar.
And I took Rashad Jennings as well, just to get a little running back depth since that was weaker than wide receiver. I only have Josh Gordon and Brandon Coleman as backup wide receivers. That is my weakness.
Corey Coleman.
Yeah, sorry. Corey Coleman and Josh Gordon, who I took them intentionally together because I feel like there's a good chance one of them will be pretty good in a PPR league.
How often are you going to sit Alshon, DeAndre, and Brandon Cooks?
I knew you were going to say that, and I just would say that, look, on paper, at the start of the season, I'm thinking I'm never sitting Hopkins, Jeffrey, and Cooks, but there are injuries, there are busts every year. There are guys
How
that
often
surprise
would you
us.
have sat Randall Cobb last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So
That's a good point.
I don't love having Corey
Jeffrey
Coleman.
missed time last year.
I don't love having Corey Coleman as my only backup wide receiver for the first four games, right, for Gordon.
Right. You'll need to do something in week 9. I mean, this is just me being silly, but week 9, Alshon and DeAndre are both on bye.
Okay.
So in your mock league,
Yeah, I'll
you're
worry
going to
about
have
that,
to start one of those Browns receivers.
Yeah.
He'll have somebody off waivers by then.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. How about you? How did you approach this 10-team PPR mock draft, and how did your teams turn out?
I'll go first. I'm going to say the theme of my draft was getting lucky. I was picking 6th overall, and what I kind of learned when I was looking back at my top 200 for PPR is that I don't like picking 6th because I think there's 4 good receivers that you can take and 1 good running back in David Johnson for a PPR league. And then after that, I think there's a little bit of a drop-off because we're talking about the Jordy, Dez, A.J. Green group of receivers. We're talking about Adrian Peterson, Lamar Miller, Todd Gurley at running back. And you're not taking a quarterback there, and you could take Gronk there, but his value, I think, comes down in PPR just because he doesn't catch as many passes as these other wide receivers. So I was very lucky to have David Johnson fall to me at 6th overall. I wanted to go 3 receivers to start my draft, but that would have meant, according to going with my rankings, Jordy Nelson 6th overall. Couldn't pull the trigger on that. David Johnson was the pick, and I was happy to get him. I was surprised to see Lamar Miller in round 2. So guess who started out going RB in a 10-team PPR draft? That was me. It's supposed to be. You're supposed to say, oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah, it was you, Dave. Yeah.
I got very lucky in round 3. T.Y. Hilton was still there. And I consider him good enough to be a number 1 receiver in a PPR. Whether or not I've got him ranked that way, I was very happy to get him. Felt very lucky to get Golden Tate in round 4. And I believe Macklin was my 5th round pick.
Carlos Hyde.
Or Carlos Hyde was in there. Hyde is on my bench to start the year. But, yeah, Carlos Hyde might have been in there in round 5.
Yeah. Macklin.
And so what I ended up doing is I was satisfied getting Hilton, Tate, and Macklin as my first 3 receivers that I really didn't bother going receiver till much later in the draft. And I just plucked running backs, got great value with Big Ben. I don't remember what round I got him in, but it was,
Round 8.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, it was round 8. Got Julius Thomas. I was the last guy to get a tight end. Thomas was there for me in round, I want to say 12 or 13. Took him then. I had no problem waiting for a quarterback or a tight end in a 10-team league. Everybody's going to have one that's at least decent. With tight end, obviously, there's a big difference between Julius Thomas and Gronk. Not getting into that right now. My team, quarterback Big Ben, running backs Miller and Johnson, receivers are Hilton and Tate. My flex is Macklin, Julius Thomas at tight end. My running back depth, Carlos Hyde, Jeremy Hill, Chris Ivory, DeAndre Washington. My receiver depth, Sterling Shepard, Torrey Smith. My kicker is Justin Tucker, and you know who my DST is.
See, one thing I would have done differently from the way you built your team, especially since you went running back, same thing with Peter. You had the opportunity to take Sanders, who I think you like, and Eric Decker, who I think gets overlooked way too much, instead of taking Jeremy Hill, who really in this format's not great. And since you had Hyde as your 3rd already.
I was just stockpiling.
No, I know, but I think in your case, the 3 receivers you have are good. They're just not exceptional. and to have another guy there just to give yourself like the same thing you said, Adam. You're never going to bench Johnson and Miller, especially if you have Hyde as your third guy, and knowing you were going to stockpile guys after that. I think the fourth receiver spot would have made this team even that much better.
There was an interesting dilemma I had in round 8 when I took Roethlisberger, and this is really specific to my draft. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 owners with 2 picks in between me from round 8 and round 9. All but one of them had a quarterback, and the one that didn't was Chris Towers, who typically waits for a quarterback. But I was nervous that if Roethlisberger had made it to him for his swing picks in 8-9, he would have gotten him, and that would have forced me to go with Tom Brady. And that would have meant carrying 2 quarterbacks. And I didn't want to do that in a 10-team league. So I just said, forget it, I'll go with Roethlisberger. And that's why I took him over a lot of guys, including other running backs that were available.
Yeah, I just would have taken the fourth receiver instead of Hill.
You know, David, begs the question, does it make sense? And I did the same thing, but you took 2 running backs with your first 2 picks. I didn't take a running back until my 4th pick and 5th pick. Does it make sense to stockpile running backs in a 10-team PPR league?
No.
I think it's important to stockpile running backs no matter what league you're in. And listen, in a 10-teamer, it's not as vital. Just because it's a 10-team league, you can find somebody on waivers. But the type of somebody at running back that's going to be on waivers won't be as good as the somebody at receiver, or certainly a quarterback.
I mean, yeah, but the thing is, you're very unlikely to use. Okay, let me pull it back. I was going to say you're very unlikely to use a running back at flex in a PPR league. However, there are enough good pass-catching running backs that you could be using Sims or.
Well, I mean, look, Jeremy
Riddick.
Macklin's numbers finished. They were great by the end of the year, but in the beginning of the year, he was pretty awful.
Yep.
And so there's, you're going to have if again we were playing this out, you would have a debate of Hyde or Hill or Macklin as your flex. Whereas if you had maybe a fourth receiver that had some standout potential. Now, I think you took Sterling Shepard too, right?
I did.
Right, so he could be that guy. I don't want to discredit him, but just based on how you have it ranked, Sanders or even Decker, and based on pedigree, those 2 guys have a better chance to. I would be shocked if they didn't outperform Jeremy Hill in this format, and certainly can be exponentially better than Jeremy Hill based on how they've performed over the last 2 years.
Tomorrow on the show, we're going to look at some players who are having good camps: Tyler Boyd, Devin Funchess, Michael Thomas, Sammy Coates. So we'll update you on that stuff. Let's talk about Jamie's team. We got some team names to give away here on Team Name Tuesday. Not the best bunch. I think we can do better. Next Tuesday, I'm expecting more from our listeners on Team Name Tuesday next week on the 9th of August. So get ready. Have something that's going to blow us away. Jamie, what was your approach in this 10-team PPR mock draft?
So I was taking best player available, and I took A.J. Green in the first round because I think he's going to fall. I think he's the 4th best receiver. So that was an easy pick for me at number 8 overall. I was looking at going receiver, but as the draft unfolded, the idea of maybe getting Ezekiel Elliott or Lamar Miller to fall in round 2, they did. I took Elliott. I think he's going to be a rock star this year. Lacey was there around 3. That was an easy pick at number 28. And then it was...
All right, wait. Slow it down. So you got 2 running backs with your first 3 picks here. After A.J. Green, you have Ezekiel Elliott and Eddie Lacy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Then it was Randall Cobb in round 4. He was my best receiver on the board. I took him ahead of Sammy Watkins and Golden Tate. I think he's better than both those guys. Unless Watkins is 100% healthy, then I'll switch that. And then I took Adam's favorite player of all time, not named C.J. Anderson.
Michael Floyd, yeah.
Would be my flex. He was the best receiver on the board. That's the spot I was looking at. And I was looking receiver to get 4 guys at that spot. So then I took one of my favorite guys in Dante Moncrief. So I have Green, Cobb, Floyd, Moncrief with 2 running backs already in Elliott and Lacey, and I love those first 6 picks.
Man, I see Tyler Lockett going in the middle of round 6. So, do you want to continue about your team, Jamie? Because I kind of just was looking at.
No, you can stop there. I mean, 56 overall is a little bit too high for me.
Yeah, man.
There's a lot of hype around him.
There is. There really is.
He is 1 preseason touchdown bomb away from being there regularly in that round 6, 7-ish range regularly. And I wonder if he's 2 big plays away from people saying, you know what, forget about Doug Baldwin. Tyler Lockett's the guy.
Yeah, and the stat...
I don't know if I'm ready to go there. I do like him.
That wouldn't be surprising, though, if he's better than Baldwin. Is he better than...
But to go ahead of Baldwin in a fantasy draft would be surprising.
Well, the stat I gave out at the beginning of the show about the quarterbacks kind of makes me feel like I'm never going to draft Russell Wilson. I don't really think he has.
Because you don't think he could be number one?
Well, I think he could be number one, but it might be number one in a down year. I don't think he has potential to have one of those epic seasons. Now, if you look at what he did in his last 8 games, Russell Wilson, and you multiply it by 2 and you give him that over 16 games, then he would have had like almost Peyton Manning's season from 2013. I just don't really think that's realistic. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he's more likely to be on fourth.
But the thing I think that is interesting is you're sold on Luck, but you're not sold on Wilson.
I am sold on Luck having more upside than Wilson.
Okay.
Are you?
Yeah, but not like that much more, where I would, if I'm inclined to take a quarterback in that spot where you typically tend to, where you're taking Luck, I think Wilson's easily right there.
Well, the thing with Luck is I think he's going to throw over 100 more passes, if not 150 more passes than Wilson. That might be a lot, but unless they change their identity, I just don't think they throw the ball enough in Seattle. I mean, it's silly to say because they throw about as much as Carolina did, and Cam Newton had that year. I don't think they throw it enough compared to Indianapolis. I'm more confident in Andrew Luck repeating his 2014 than I am in Russell Wilson repeating his 2015.
Oh, I think that's fair. I just think there's not that much difference in what they could do to go the way that you're going. So much in favor of Luck and so far away from Wilson, just based on what you said.
Dave, where you at on that?
I like Luck better. I just think there's a little more upside. I'm not totally convinced that Seattle's going to become pass happy. I know Indy's going to be pass happy.
Right. Exactly.
And then Luck, from what I've read in Indianapolis, he did not get off to a good start in training camp. But in the last, I'd say, day or two, he started to really get better and start to play smoother, make plays when a play breaks down. I think a lot of it's going to come down to finding that third guy. And if Dorsett's that third guy like we all think he can be, then he should be in line to get really good numbers. In the offensive line, Ryan Kelly got banged up. That's a little scary. But provided that he's back and healthy and ready to go week 1, that offensive line is going to be better. Andrew Luck will be better.
It's Team Name Tuesday. Let's see what we got from Twitter and from our emails at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Justin Schmid gave us a couple on Twitter. Finding Dorial.
Yeah, the Titans are looking.
It's very apropos. And Levy on my wayward son.
Any chance he could sing? He thinks
Any chance.
That is clever.
Yeah, that's a good one. You'll like this one, Jamie, from Jacob Greeter. A team has no name. Very good Game of Thrones reference. This is from DM. The captain DM thinks I should name my team 481. Yeah, because I wasn't in the 480.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And Frank from Santa Cruz, in relation to the Pokemon Go craze, got to catch Jamal.
Ah,
I like
very
it.
clever.
Yeah, I got to catch them all. Those were some of the highlights.
I wanted to download that today, Pokemon Go.
Did you say yes?
I did it, but then he didn't know how to do it. So he's like, Dad, how do I catch the Pokemon? I'm like, shoot, kid, I barely know how to cook a steak.
Because they're related.
No, I don't. You think I can catch a Pokemon? I don't know what his thing is.
I know nothing about that game.
Yeah, me either.
I don't want to.
I'm freaking 40 years old already.
You know who plays it. Guess who on the fantasy staff plays Pokemon Go?
Is there somebody on the fantasy staff?
I'm not going to give any specifics. Fantasy staff in your office.
Oh, it's Chris Towers.
Oh yeah,
it's 100% Chris Towers. Yeah.
Has he said he plays?
Yeah, he said we talked about it on the.
So he's walking
show.
around this is what you do, right? You get your phone and you're walking around looking for imaginary characters in real life.
Yeah, I saw 2 people outside my apartment down the street a little bit playing it, and I was just like, "What are you doing? You're adults. Why are you doing this?" Whatever. Maybe it's fun. Not for me. Oh, let's read some emails from PD. Dear Dallas, Kobe, and Jacob.
Those are Colts tight ends, I believe.
That's right. You are correct. By the way, where's PD from?
PD is from Sierraville, California.
I have been a longtime listener, and I wanted to share a heartwarming story with you all. The podcast league is coming up, and you mentioned last year that you asked for haikus. I did not submit one as I was in too many leagues last year, but I started making haikus for other areas of my life after hearing how funny these submissions were. I made one for my girlfriend, and I gave it to her. Fast forward a year, and I find myself searching through her nightstand trying to find a ring so I can sneakily figure out her ring size. No luck finding a ring, but I found the haiku I wrote her, which she kept. I'm asking her to marry me next month. I'll be sure to keep you all posted. You are all worth a $100 tip.
Nice, man. Good for you. Congratulations.
So I get to give a toast at the roast dinner?
Dear PD.
If you were going to propose to someone with a haiku, how would you how would you do that? Can anybody think of
I'd say the last part of it would be please don't run away.
All right, we'll come up
Am
with
I crushing you by sitting on you?
As you guys answer the next question,
You
I'll
don't
try
have to
to
sit
come
on
up with
somebody.
one. From Tyler. Where's Tyler from?
Tyler's from Overland Park, Kansas.
Tyler says, Dear Lucas, Dustin, and Mike, which are characters from Stranger Things, which everybody is raving about, which I would really like to watch. I've been offered Tom Brady for Josh Gordon in a half-point PPR league that starts 3 wide receivers. I have Alshon Jeffrey, Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb, Julian Edelman, John Brown, and Kamari Aiken, and he has Kirk Cousins as his quarterback. So he already has Alshon, Watkins, Cobb, Edelman, Brown, and Aiken. Would you give up Josh Gordon for Brady?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't have enough time.
By
to
the
write
way,
haiku.
is the only reason why you want to watch that show is because everybody else is watching that show?
Because people that I trust have said it's excellent.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah.
I thought it's just because you see headlines and
Me?
Twitter links.
I'm not that kind of guy. You know that.
I hope you're not.
I usually don't like the popular things, so at least I get
Don't be
teased for
afraid to
that.
think for yourself.
Thanks.
That's just a little note for everybody, not just you,
Okay.
cat boy.
Chris from Beaverton, Oregon says, first of all, shout out to the XFL Fantasy Football League, okay? And he needs to keep C.J. Anderson or Thomas Rawls in a 10-team half-point PPR 2-keeper league. He's already keeping Antonio Brown, so tell him C.J. Anderson or Thomas Rawls.
I can't imagine a situation where you'll feel better about Rawls over Anderson.
If Rawls
Rawls
is
would
back
have to
by-
come back and practice, and like other running backs in Seattle would have to either get hurt or stay hurt. Like
Well, Process is
Procise already has a hamstring issue.
Well, Procise, I don't think really impacts Rawls too much.
Right, but Collins and Brooks might.
And Michael,
And
who's
Christian
running
Michael.
first team.
Oh, yeah, him.
The thing I think you got to factor in is who has the chance to give you 8+ games of great production.
That's all you're looking for from those guys? I feel like I'm looking for
that's-
more than just
That's the
8.
floor. That's the floor I'm looking at with any of these guys at this point. So
Okay. Yeah, I would keep Anderson. Jamie, I'm sure you would
Yeah.
too. And I'd put a little star next to Devontae Booker's name. Get him to back up Anderson in your draft.
All right, you ready?
For what?
The engagement haiku?
go for it.
Go ahead.
Baby, I love you. Let's spend our lives together. Will you marry me?
I mean, my estrogen level.
Wait, did you just
Going
did you
through the
propose
roof
to me
right
or
now.
Dave?
He was
I was
looking
looking
at
at
me.
Dave.
You just proposed to me.
Wow.
I say yes. I don't mind. I'm
you're-
going to tell Karen.
You're sitting right now?
He's sitting.
Wait, I'm sitting.
Will you go down on a knee at least?
No, that'd be weird.
Then forget it. The wedding's off.
Okay.
Not interested in marrying you.
Here is Big Trees from Wilsonville, Oregon. Dear Slippy, Slappy, and Swanson. Samsonite. Keep one, please. Brandon Marshall in the 4th or Kelvin Benjamin in the 10th.
KB.
Yeah, the value's too good.
Dusty from?
Dusty is from St. Edward, Ohio.
Team name suggestion from Dusty is The House, because the house always wins. Clever.
Aha.
Better if you were in a Vegas league. We're forced to draft early this year, August 20th. I don't really consider that early. Does that change strategy at all? I want to think that I should limit my chances of losing a top pick to injury by valuing top-end quarterbacks more than normal. Does an early draft change anything for you guys?
I don't think so.
You could, maybe avoid guys who you're questioning, like Thomas Rawls or Sammy Watkins,
Arian Foster,
Tyler Eifert, guys that you don't know what their status is going to be come week 1. But otherwise, I think you just draft the same way.
But aren't you, for the most part, taking the same chance by drafting before the third week of the preseason games? Because anybody could go out there and get hurt the third week of the preseason game.
But these guys are hurt, and they probably will not be playing in that third preseason game for the most part.
Does that help their case? Because then they're resting. You just
Right.
don't know how long they're out. I would be especially concerned about players who were still on the PUP list at that time.
Last email is from Bryce in Lexington, South Carolina. Dear Ronald, Grimace, and the Hamburglar, I'm in a 10-team...
McDonald's characters, yeah.
Yeah. I just thought it went without saying. I'm in a 10-team PPR league. Our draft order randomizes 1 hour prior to the draft, so not knowing what pick I will have, if I go 0 RB, which round should I begin to look for a running back if I go 0 RB in a 10-team PPR league? Oh, perfect! Do it, man.
Yeah, this is a good league to do it in.
Absolutely.
Provided that there's a receiver that you're comfortable taking and running backs that you definitely don't want to take in round 1. I'm just thinking back to where I was in mine, where my choices were A.J. Green, Des Bryant, Jordy Nelson, David Johnson. And I like those receivers, but I'm not going to pass up a running back there. Not somebody like David Johnson, who I think does have 40 to 50 catch potential and enough yardage potential to make up the difference in receptions between the other receivers that are there. Maybe not quite as much. But I went in that direction with running back, and I forgot completely about going 0 RB once that happened. I would not commit to 0 RB until you know you like the receiver that you're taking in round 1.
Yeah.
Much easier to do from there.
And in a PPR league, I think it's, quarterback values decrease, so you don't necessarily have to take a quarterback before a running back.
You don't.
Right.
It's true.
All right, I have one more haiku.
All right, let's go.
This is a personal one for me now.
Is this to me?
No. It's to my fiance. Ready?
Yeah.
Bad news, fiance. Today I proposed to Dave. Well, this is awkward. Okay,
like I said, I say no. Hey, Adam, you know what happens in 9 days? 9 days. It's more like 9 nights from Tuesday night.
We're getting married in 9 nights?
No.
Well, football starts before that, Dave.
Well, it's the first preseason game on Sunday, but everybody knows that that's not going to be nearly as exciting as the 6 games that we get next Thursday.
That's cool.
I say the same thing about the preseason every year. You can't wait for it to come, and then you can't wait for it to go away.
That's 100% true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can wait for it. The weeks 2 and 3 are the only ones I really care too much.
Of course, but it's week 1 is, oh man, this is awesome. Football's back. There's players playing. Look, there's a rookie that's playing with the second team. You check him out. You read the stories. It's lots of fun. Week 2 is, oh cool, the starters are playing a little bit longer. You get a little bit more information. Week 3, the starters play into the third quarter. This is cool. It feels like football again. And then week 4, it's like, what the hell is this
week 4
crap?
is awful. Week 4
Can you
might
just
be worse
get
than
me to
one.
week 1 already so I can set my fantasy lineup and plop down on the couch and watch these games on Sunday?
Well, Dave, thank you. I know you haven't heard from Jamie in a while. He had to do a radio interview, so he is off the show. So, Dave, say goodbye for yourself. And what's that? Yeah, forever.
Wow. 2-man show.
Yeah.
First we're engaged, now this.
Yeah, how about that? It's the Adam and Dave show. All right, thanks for
Adam,
listening.
Go ahead and wrap it up, buddy.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow with some training camp risers and fallers, and then we'll get into our position previews, I think, at the end of the week. Have a good one.
This was Fantasy Football Today.
Bye.